Hello and welcome everybody. And today we're going to be doing another Popular Investor Quarterly Forum. And we have some new guests today and some previous guests that we've had on the Quarterly Forum before. So just before we get started, just want to say that this is not financial advice, and any views that we express are not that of eToro. So without further ado, let me get started and welcome our amazing panel. From all over the world, we have people from lots of different nations in this forum discussion. We have Mexico, we have Singapore, we have Mauritius, and we have Malaysia. So let me get started and introduce you to the panel. So we will start off. If yourself, Maverick, could please just give a very short introduction to yourself, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Maverick. My username in eToro is 𝗵𝗵𝗍𝗶𝗀𝗍. I'm from Malaysia. Yeah, basically I trade the stocks and the crypto. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Maverick. And now over to Simone. Could you introduce yourself quickly?
Hello, everybody. So my name is Simone. You can find me on eToro under Simone Rizzetto 88. And I have a background in medical science and computer science. And I usually trade in this market. And I've been on eToro since a couple of years now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Simone, and welcome back. And over to you, Ishfaaq. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Stephen. Hello, everybody. My name is Ishfaaq Peerally. Username Ishfaaq Peerally on eToro. I'm a long-term value investor. Over to you.
Great. Thanks very much, Ishfaaq, and very good to have you as a special guest on the focus group today. And over to Amar, a regular guest. Can you just give an introduction into yourself?
Thanks, Stephen. So I'm Amar. My username on eToro is Amar Singh 1234. I live in Singapore. On YouTube, I'm investing education. So I've been tracking my YouTube portfolio there for about close to 3 years now. The name of the project is Project 1 Million. So trying to reach that milestone. I mainly invest in high quality stocks, and I'm dabbling into crypto, and I'm looking forward to learning from all the panelists here. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Amar. And over to another special guest for the first time on our focus group, over to Levy. Can you introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Stephen, for inviting me to this panel. My name is Levy. I'm trading on eToro under the name of 𝗬𝗑𝗍𝗶𝗀𝗍. Originally, I'm from Hungary, but currently in Mexico, and most of the time all around the place. I consider myself to be a contrarian investor, and I don't really limit myself to any specific asset classes. So I trade stocks, commodities, sometimes currencies, so on, depending on the market conditions. And I also prefer to be on both sides of the trade, so not only going long, but also short things if I see it fit. So pretty much that's it.
Great, that's really good. Thank you very much, Levy, for introducing yourself, and good to have you on the panel. And just lastly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Stephen, and my username on eToro is 𝗵𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗃. And I trade a number of different asset classes, including equities, crypto, oil and gas, as well as Forex and some precious metals. So a real multi-strategy investor. So great. So that's the introductions done. Thanks very much, guys. So let's move on to our key topics for today. And I think everybody can agree that last quarter was very eventful. It was full of ups and downs, a bit of a roller coaster ride, to say the least. So I just wanted to do a little summary of, and talk to the panel guests about what happened in the last quarter and some of your kind of views on the market. So if I go over to Simone, do you want to give a little bit of a an overview of your thoughts of last quarter?
Yeah, it's going to be hard because it happened so many different things, probably starting from the Evergrande crisis. I do have a bit of exposures on Chinese stocks in my portfolio that were already affected before by the CCP cracks down on tech stocks, and now Evergrande made it even worse. I guess, you know, for brave people, this was a good buy the dip opportunity. I had already a bit of exposure, so I didn't want to increase my exposures a lot on that. But I did try to buy a little bit and take advantage of this. Obviously, you know, it's worrying when there is like a company like Evergrande going defaulting with $300 billion debt. But at the end of the day, you know, eventually, if you're a long-term investors, you might expect that this is going to recover at some points. And so this is still my view for the long term in terms of Chinese stocks. And I want to take a chance to buy the dip here.
And did you worry, Simone, about in terms of the Evergrande situation? Did you worry about in terms of that the contagion could kind of spread outside of China, or do you think it would be quite localized to China? Do you have any views on that?
So I'm not an expert in this area, so I just refer to what I read online, and most of the top managers in banks or fund managers, most of them say that they are not worried about Evergrande because they have very little exposures to bonds from Evergrande or like to anything that has to do with them. It's for like stocks like Alibaba or others, this could be a little bit more problematic because they are in China and they are more vulnerable to that. But I think even before that, they were trading a very low evaluations. So I don't know how further down they can go, even in this case. And so I think at this stage it's not that risky anymore. The opportunity is very big.
Yeah, I think with the Evergrande situation, I think the Chinese property market, just to give a bit of context to the audience, the property market has been overheating in China for well over a decade now. And they've been giving a lot of money to speculators and developers to build projects. Actually, over 20% of properties throughout China are actually unoccupied at the moment. So that means that they're actually unlived in, and they're bought by speculators in order to be able to make a profit by selling them. So it wasn't that surprising to me that the developing companies are going to have these type of debt issues.
But it's also a social issue because like people in China really value owning the house a lot more than Western. So for them, it's like essential things to own a house. If you want to get married, you cannot get married without having a house. And parents are like willing to sell their house in order to get the money to pay for another new house for their daughters or not daughters, because it's usually the male, but like for their children to get married. And it's a little bit crazy. So it's cultural things, and also it's quite funny that on the stocks, the stock market, they try to keep it low to not grow as a bubble, while the property markets, it's freely to grow as much as they want.
Yeah, they did. I had a feeling this might happen a couple of months ago because the Chinese banks, they actually started to reduce the amount of loans that they provide to these property developers, and they had to put a much bigger upfront deposit down. Obviously a lot of these developers are working on a high amount of leverage. So it was, you know, I thought something like this might happen, but not to this degree. But I think it's very important, I think, to understand that I don't think that the Chinese government are going to, that they are definitely going to help out. And we've already seen that with Evergrande. They're going to try and force their assets and force them to sell some subsidiaries that they have to try and reduce that debt, to reduce the contagion. So they're definitely going to be a part of that. Okay, we won't focus too much on China at this current time. Can I go over to Ishfaaq? Do you have any kind of key takeaways from the previous quarter?
Yes, thank you. I think what the main talking point in the US is inflation right now. Because,
inflation.
Yes, compared to what we had last year, the Fed is saying that it's just transitory because last year we had deflation. And looking at how the market is reacting, it seems that the market expects it to be transitory, but we don't know if this will keep continuing for the long term. So this is, I think, the main thing to think about last quarter, especially in the US, inflation.
What are your views, Ishfaaq? Do you? I know nobody knows for certain, but do you think that these inflation issues are likely to persist longer, in your opinion, or do you think that they will naturally improve and prove to be transitory over the long term?
Not transitory. Yes, I mean, right now it's 5%, 5.4%. I don't think it's going to be that much for longer, but it's not going to be 2% either. So maybe 3%. This is my opinion. For the next few years, we are going to see higher than usual inflation, but not as high as it is right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a difficult subject because obviously there was a huge amount of money printing into the into the economy because of the pandemic. A lot of stimulus given out. This has caused obviously this has caused the inflation rate to go a lot higher. Also, the bottlenecks of the supply chain as well, which also, haven't helped that inflationary issue. And also, oil and gas prices have also gone a lot higher as well. And I think this is kind of weighing on the market. But I guess the point is, I think inflation is there to stay. I think it's going to naturally get higher over time, but how high does it get? That's the main issue. And I always think it's difficult the way that you actually measure inflation as well, because they can say, oh, inflation's reduced or inflation's not as bad as it was, but are you discounting oil? Are you discounting food? Are you discounting everything that we all need in our everyday lives? It's a tough question. Does anybody have anything else on inflation that they want to contribute?
I wanted to add a few thoughts and just chip in, because I think I completely agree that it's an extremely complex topic. I would also add that it's not only a topic for the recent quarter, it's a topic for the last, let's say, 9 months, because the inflation worries started much earlier. As soon as the world started to think about coming out from the pandemic and recover, this was a looming issue. It just sort of manifested about 6 months ago as we started to see the higher and higher readings of the CPI. So just a quick thought to that, what you said about measuring inflation, and that's absolutely spot on to say that it's very tricky, because CPI, again, core CPI is without food and energy, because they say it's cyclical. But the funny thing is that, and I was having this discussion with a friend, imagine the situation that anyone who provides a service, let's say a car mechanic, has expenses, and these expenses are mostly food and fuel and energy related. So if these prices go up, he needs to raise his prices, so he's going to charge for his customers more And this higher prices going to be actually reflected in the next CPI reading, because that is a service. It's not food and not energy anymore. So again, I don't, without putting any more twisting this any further, it's extremely tricky to measure accurately. And yes, it looks like I agree with that too, that it seems to be a longer issue going forward. It's not something that is transitory. I am not as optimistic as Ishfaaq to say it's not going to go higher than 5%. I actually can imagine that we're going to see a few higher readings in the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, I think it could get higher because, as you said, 𝗵𝗲, there's a lagging effect on the inflation figures, and we could see those over the next couple of months, especially, again, as I said, oil prices have been going up, and the supply chain disruption. Yeah, and also the other thing is that I think it's often overlooked is factory gate inflation, which a lot of economists actually use as the real gauge of inflation, because the factory gate inflation happens before the usual kind of CPI readings, and they are very high at the moment.
They're extremely high. They're much more varying than the CPI. So PPI readings are the real trouble. And I think another thought for this whole inflation topic is that people who are worried about inflation and has been worried in the last 3-6 months, I think they are worried for the wrong reasons. Everyone seems to be too much focused on the money printing, forgetting the fact that this money that has been printed is not in the economy yet. So it's sitting on reserve accounts, and it's not in people's and businesses' pockets to be spent. It's not an effective. It's not in the circulation. What really can drive inflation higher, and as we can see, it does. It's the oil prices, energy prices, supply chain problems, shipping fees. So it's very interesting to take a look at what's going on with the international cargo shipping prices, and containers are at all-time highs, like 300, 400, 500% higher than last year. So yeah, lots to.
Great. Yeah, that's really good information, 𝗵𝗲. I mean, I think there's a whole lot of things tangled into this discussion, and I think there are some things that haven't even played out yet. I think it could get worse before it starts to get any better. Yeah.
How long do you think it will take before it will get better? Like we are talking about 2023, 2024, or even longer. What's your opinion?
I think it could be. I think it could be maybe 2023. I don't know for certain, but I do think it's definitely going to take some time to play out. I think the economy hasn't gone back to normality. The supply chain issues haven't been solved yet. Oil prices are getting much higher. Yeah, I think it could take a while.
What is the main issue? Is the demand or the supply?
Well, the supply will be something. If we talk about oil, the supply will be something that will be reviewed by OPEC. I mean, they are the council that decide the energy quotas and how much actually gets how much output actually comes to fruition. Again, that's another massive topic that we can unpack at some stage as well, is around the energy shortage and what they might do in terms of increasing the supply, but also looking at other energy resources, nuclear, renewable energy sources as well. And even China have actually fired up the coal mining again. So I think a lot of stuff to unpack there.
Yeah, the funny thing is, it's not only China. It's countries who previously said that they're never gonna return to the old ways are now firing up the coal plants. And yeah, again, I don't even go into it because there's so much to talk around this topic.
Okay, Amar, I just want to bring you into the conversation. Do you have any views on the current supply chain issues that we have in the economy, whether that's to do with specific companies or how it's affecting the economy in general?
I'll just say that until recently, I didn't really feel the effects of inflation here in Singapore. But recently I got a letter from my electricity provider that they're going out of business. And I think a few electricity providers in Singapore are going out of business. So apparently the energy prices are starting to hit some of the energy businesses here. So, I mean, that's the real concern, the energy prices. Other than that, I don't really see inflation on a day-to-day basis here in Singapore. I'll just say that some people don't agree with the thesis on inflation rising, like Cathie Wood. Cathie Wood is a big believer in deflation, actually. She feels that will be the major trend in the future. I do see a point. I mean, I see some improvements in technology and improvement in productivity, lowering prices. Genetic testing is getting cheaper. Maybe traveling will get cheaper. I mean, by road, if electric cars, gain more prominence. I can definitely see some costs coming down. Overall, I'm not very confident on the ability of politicians to control inflation. I think they do whatever is convenient for them at the time. So when the pandemic hit, printing money was the convenient thing to do. So they printed money like nobody's business. And it's difficult to get, it's like a drug. Once you get onto that drug, it's difficult to get off that drug. So I think that might continue for a while. I mean, I don't know when tapering will happen or when the interest rates will go up. But if inflation does become a problem in the US, I guess interest rates will go up eventually. In terms of my portfolio for the last quarter, I think up to August, I think we were doing actually okay. September was a bad month. I think there was a perfect storm of bad things happening. Chinese stocks kept falling even further. And I think the general stock market also became very skittish about these concerns like supply chain shortages and inflation and so on. So, yeah, I think overall, it's best to take a long-term view with these matters because it's hard to predict the short term. I think I'm positive. I think overall, maybe these things can work themselves out.
Okay, thanks, Amar. And just before I move over to Maverick, I've just got a question for everybody on this panel. How high will oil prices get? How high do you think they will go? Does anyone have an opinion on that? I have my own opinion, but I'd like to hear others.
Can I go first?
Yes, you can.
However outrageous it sounds, I can easily see a spike, not a constant level, but a spike to reach a range between $150 and $200 a barrel by the end of 2022.
Wow, that's yeah, I agree with you. It can go higher. It's a little bit higher than my estimation. I'd say probably somewhere between 100 to 120, but I can definitely see some of those catalysts, which obviously you think that it can go a lot higher.
So is that going to block the returns to travel? Because if oil is going to be more expensive, traveling will be more expensive. And given that you have a lot of uncertainties about like traveling with COVID, then if everything is expensive and uncertain, then just stay home.
I don't think so. It would immediately impact travel for a very simple reason. Most travel companies, talking about airlines, they do hedge their fuel. So they don't buy fuel on the spot market. So the immediate spikes or, short-term volatility in energy prices doesn't impact their business immediately. So what happens, every airline has a different strategy on how to hedge their fuel. Some of them hedge 100% and they can go either very bad or very good. Like last year, the pandemic kicked in. A couple of airlines, EasyJet, I think was one of them, Lufthansa, the other one, who had a significant amount of their fuel hedged at levels of $50, $60 a barrel, or jet fuel, the different measures. And what happened when oil prices went negative, they had to pay the difference on those future contracts. So they actually, in their balance sheets, it was a huge loss. So depending on the airline, they're gonna choose a certain strategy how to hedge the fuel. If oil spikes to $150, $200, if it happens, it's good for my portfolio. I presume it's good for Stephen too. But I can't, you know, because of the way how things work in the airline business or the travel business, this won't make your or my flight ticket to skyrocket. It will be a lagging effect. So
yeah,
Interesting.
that's good. Yeah, so that'll be a very interesting thing to watch over the next few months. I think it's quite likely that you know, we've seen a bit of a tear at the moment of the oil price. I think we're at a 7-year high, if I'm correct. That could go a lot higher, but yeah, let's see where we are next quarter with that. Over to Maverick. Do you have any key points that you want to talk about last quarter before we move on to some forward-looking events?
Well, last quarter, basically, you guys covered all. I think the inflation is here to stay. As long as there is the money printing that keep going on, the inflation will remain high. So yeah, we can't just print a lot of money and expect don't have the consequences. So I think that everybody need to invest in some form to hedge to protect against the inflation. Yeah,
I think one of the other key subjects that's been a lot in the press at the moment and is on the interest of a lot of investors is around to do with the Fed's actions, and in particular to do with whether they will start tapering. I think it's pretty obvious at this stage that they will taper, but I think the question on everybody's mind is when they will start tapering and what effect that might have on the markets. Ishfaaq, do you have any views on tapering, and potentially you could talk about as well how that might affect some of equities?
Well, I don't know when they will do it, but eventually, I think if inflation especially is going to be higher for quite some time, then they will be forced to do it because political reasons they will do it. And if it's of course going to change the equity market, that the growth stocks are not going to do so well, but it will be good for bank stocks, of course, for value stocks. There's going to be a rotation in the market if tapering happens. This is what I think.
Have you done any in order for the kind of preparation that might happen? Have you done anything in your own portfolio that might, you know, bearing that in mind, or it's something that you're not solely focused on?
Actually, this is something I was already preparing for quite a long time ago. I try to maintain a portfolio with low market correlation. So I don't have that many growth stocks in my portfolio. And the S&P 500 today is being driven by mostly growth stocks. So I try to stay away from them for quite some time. I'm mostly investing in smaller companies. So I'm not so worried about what the Fed will do, actually.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Ishfaaq, and I think as you touched upon at the beginning, it could be quite good for a lot of different stocks. You know, as you said, financial services, insurance companies. There's lots of you know, equities that actually benefit from potentially from higher interest rates. Yeah. Anyone else want to chip in about, you know, either interest rates or tapering?
Just one very quick thing about this. So everybody knows that tapering is coming, and you know, somehow they prepare already for that. And as soon as it will be announced, then it's gonna be the good moments to plan for the next move. So they always look ahead. So they are like, now we are seeing the effect of the tapering, but then when the tapering is going to arrive, people will start moving the markets in the directions that will go next. And so that's some things you can, I usually don't think much about this because I don't jump from one sector to another one based on the political situation or fiscal policies. So I'm just sit there and wait that things is gonna go my own way. But I believe that tapering, it's a good thing also for growth stock, because at that point, tapering has arrived, and that's the most important things for growth stocks. And once we have get that out of the way, then we can start moving back into growth stocks again.
Yeah, it definitely does go in cycles. I always find it quite amusing as well, because it's the, you know, the Federal Reserve, everybody just hangs on the every word of what J.𝗂𝗲𝗏 𝗏 says and how he says it and what that might mean for the future implications. I think in terms of the Fed, it's a bit like an experiment, right? It's a bit like a science experiment. They sprinkle a little bit of compounds in, you know, in order to see what might actually happen. And I personally am of the opinion that tapering would have probably already happened if it wasn't for the kind of splutter that we've seen. I think there was a bit of a hangover from the Chinese situation, the inflation, etc. I think it might have happened already if it wasn't also, some of these splutterings.
But also unemployment is still not going down so quickly as they were expecting. So they made, you know, if you do tapering, then you may slow down unemployment even further.
You're right.
The re-employment even further.
You're right. I think they're only going to do it when they are confident that it's not going to have a massive tanking effect on the market. So I think they're going to take their time. I think Delta variant also was probably another thing that had stopped them from doing it. So doing it earlier. Actually, that's a very good segue into the coronavirus, and for us to talk a little bit more about things that happen in terms of the coronavirus. What are people's overall views on the recovery from COVID, and how long we expect that to potentially take? And lastly, I think we do a little bit of a discussion as well on how that might affect travel, and will we get back to travel again? I think Simone, you're probably a good person to talk to about that. I know you don't work in to do with COVID research, but you're in medical, you might have a little bit of an overview of
so when I wrote like my post on eToro at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, end of last year, there was a lot of optimism from the vaccines that okay, now we can go back to normal. But what I wrote was that I don't believe we are gonna go back to normal, at least for this year. And then when we had the first conversation here on this YouTube channel, I also said that recovery is gonna be slower than expected. And I think now things improved and now we are moving to the right directions, but it's a very unstable situations. So it could be any time that coronavirus can start spreading again because of new mutations, because of new variants, and there is still a lot of uncertainties around traveling. It will improve because now we have more therapies for that, not only vaccines, but also other type of therapies are coming out. But still people will be worried about traveling and get COVID when you are abroad, because you don't really know what is going to happen to you when you return positive and you are in a countries that maybe you don't even speak the language. I don't know. It's not going to be a very nice situation.
How do you think that the governments are going to start to tackle it? Because we've obviously gone in different cycles. We had the initial cycle, which it was very much, lockdown, segregate. And then we've had the, the mass vaccinations of populations around the world. Do you think we're going to get to a point where we're just going to continue with the vaccinations and let people go back to a normalish type of life? Or do you think that there'll be periods of lockdowns, periods of booster shots? How do you think it's going to work out?
Depends by the country. So Western country, I think, have done are adopting now good strategies, which is to combine the vaccinations with the reopening. So it's not nice things to say, but like people in this way will get COVID, and we will also develop natural immunities on the top of the immunity that they get from COVID. So in that way they can boost their immunities and have longer protections. If you do your vaccinations, but then you are in a country that is completely locked down, vaccination effect is gonna dissipates over probably 6-7 months. We don't know exactly how long it's gonna last. And then after this period, you will lose your immunity to the virus. And this is, so this could be a problem. And if you think this is exactly what's happening here in Singapore, everybody is vaccinated, but still we cannot reopen completely because people don't have natural immunity against that. And only the vaccination is not enough. And this could be even worse in China, because a lot of people in China are vaccinated only with these Chinese vaccines, which are not as effective as the mRNA vaccines. And also they adopted a lot of lockdowns, and they used these elimination strategies, which didn't put the populations to develop natural immunity. And then when they are gonna open to the rest of the world, they cannot keep doing lockdowns, otherwise, because they will get COVID from everywhere. Either they stay locked down forever, or like closing the border forever, or eventually they will have to deal with a rising number of cases. And they could not be nice given the density of population in China.
Okay. Thanks, Simone. Just while you're talking, I wanted to ask you as well, how much of a game changer do you think that this new Merck drug is? I heard that it cuts the 50%. Hospitalization by 50%. You think that's going to be a game changer in the battle against the pandemic?
I don't think it's going to be a game changer. It's going to be helpful. So every treatments that we are going to develop, they will bring us a step closer to the returns to normal. There is not going to be some things that
no magic drug.
So yeah, probably. And so we will need to use every weapons that we have. We will have to combine vaccines with this pill and also with antibodies therapies that are also coming out. Hopefully it's gonna they are gonna give a good result soon.
Good.
So we will have to use everything we have.
Okay, thanks for that, Simone. I wanted to ask you, Ishfaaq, as well, because I understand that you're a real value investor and then you look for kind of stocks that are undervalued. And the fact that a lot of coronavirus affected a lot of COVID sensitive types of stocks. Are they something that you would look at as a value investor and see big opportunities in?
Well, last year in March, April 2020, I made some of the best investments. For example, one airline, Alaska Airlines, I bought in March, April and May of 2020. I saw the opportunities there. Of course, right now, these stocks are not doing so well because of this Delta variant. But if the company is still undervalued and I'm thinking about the long term, eventually I believe we'll see a recovery. I don't know when it will happen, but it will happen.
Yeah. I've kind of noticed a pattern. I'm not sure about the rest of the panel, but I've noticed a pattern of, after lockdowns or after a particular variant, it kind of goes through cycles. There's a lot of optimism and you start to see these equity prices on COVID sensitive stocks increase quite quickly in the expectations that things are going to get back to normal. And then we see a reality situation where they start to drop again. So I kind of noticed that they've been going in cycles.
Can I ask one thing? One reason why I worried about these recovery stocks, they look to have a very good value, but I'm a bit worried about the debts they made during the pandemics. So is that gonna affect a lot their stocks, or do you think they will be able to pay out their debts very quickly as soon as they we move back to normal?
That's a good question. I think it would depend on each individual company because it depends on the health of the balance sheet and you know, how much in debt each company is, what their cash flows are like, etc. I think what I do think is I think a lot of the companies that actually moved very quickly after the coronavirus and actually made massive initiatives to reduce their costs and their outlay, staff fees, equipment outlay, whatever type of company it is. I think that those will tend to do well, you know, when things start to operate a little bit more normally again, because they will have less debt payments to make, etc. So I think it's a case-by-case basis, depending on the business. But I think those who are proactive will reap the benefits later on. Levi, do you have any points that you want to make on the coronavirus?
I just really wanted to add a few thoughts to this very last bit, you know, about the COVID stocks and the recovery stocks, particularly with airlines. I think they are a good example to demonstrate what my thinking pattern was. If you guys remember last year, it was quite a big news in many financial outlets that Warren Buffett sold out all of his airline stocks and airline holdings.
Yeah,
and there's a reason behind that. Obviously, I'm not pretending to know what the old man thinks, but it was quite obvious that with his type of investment thinking, that he saw that many of these businesses are financially, their financial structures are changed for good. So taking on debt, different forms, diluting their shareholders that most European airlines did, like IAG, most recently EasyJet. So if you compare the airline, what they are as a business, if you take off the label that they're an airline, you just look at the finances, the numbers, and put next to it 2 years ago, you're looking at a different business, different outlook, different growth prospect. Not to mention that we are looking forward to a sort of a shakedown, not only in the airline business, but in, you know, tourism industry. Those who are weak going to go out of business eventually, and their market share will be picked up by those who were proactive. So there are lots of exciting things to look forward to, and I think those who are happy to take the time to dig in and do the due diligence on those balance sheets can pick long-term winners and make very nice profits.
Why do you think that? Obviously, you're not Warren Buffett, but why do you think that he made this, you know, this type of decision on the future of airlines? Do you think it's because of the fact that it's changing forever, because they expect to have less business type travelers? Because I believe that, I don't know the numbers specifically, but I believe that business travel previously made up a high portion of the people traveling.
Yeah, it's not really the people traveling. Business travel and long haul travel is what makes up a huge percentage of the bottom line of the net income, the profits that the company make. So if you think about it, an airline doesn't make its profits from those low budget travelers who spend 20 euros or pounds on a London Tenerife Ryanair flight.
Unless you're EasyJet.
Or EasyJet. Most of, especially American airlines, because in America it's a completely different business culture, traveling, you know, from one place to another, meeting clients, doing, you know, business. The thing is that those tickets are charged 10 times, 20 times, 50 times more than what people, you know, expect to pay in Europe. And because of that, these are the type of business that generates ultimately the profit for most of these airlines. So one of the factors here to look into is that, yes, because of the pandemic did to how we conduct business, how we do, you know, Zoom calls and video meetings, that would definitely reduce the number of in-person meetings going forward. But it's just simply, I think it also boils down to the fact that running an airline is one of the trickiest, the hardest, most cash intensive, most unpredictable, low margin. If you ask me today what kind of business I would start, if I had the capital, it's definitely not an airline. It's extremely, extremely hard to run. No accident that there is hundreds of airlines went bust in the last 2, 3, 4 decades. It's very hard to keep an airline profitable, especially in the face of a global event that basically puts, you know, global travel to a standstill. Yeah. If I was him, but I'm not, I would do the same, obviously.
I think it has changed. I think it's going to be survival of fittest, and only the strongest airlines are going to survive. And I also think, I don't know about the rest of the panel, but I also think it's going to be the same for hotels as well. I think hotels have suffered a lot, obviously, because of the lack of passengers. But I think there's another thing about hotels as well, is the fact that because of the pandemic, people don't want to be around too many other people. And people have a lot of hygiene issues, and they want to be kind of segregated, but people still want to have holidays, right? So I think that's why we've seen some good growth from companies like Airbnb. So I have Airbnb in my portfolio, and that's done very well. And the reason why I made that investment is because apart from it being a really good business, and a business that's continually to grow, people want to go on holidays, but they want to take their families away from people. I think hotels, I don't think the days are completely numbered, but I think they're going to go through a similar consolidation.
Personally, I totally agree with the Airbnb part. I wouldn't put them into my portfolio for different reasons, but I had, because of my current lifestyle, traveling a lot, both within Mexico and internationally, I use Airbnb, and as a client, I can tell that they do everything, literally everything, to make money. Like, I don't want to, bring up the particular examples, but they are very strict to ensure that their finances are good.
Yeah.
And enough sad. So because of that, they are a well-run company. On the hotel side, it's a tricky thing. Hotels, again, with airlines, they make a significant portion of their income from conferences, meetings, a lot of people comes together, and proportionally the money they charge on those kind of events are significantly higher than what they make on a night or two on a single traveler. But yeah, overall, I totally agree that we likely gonna see some kind of consolidation in the hospitality space.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Levi. Amar, do you have any thoughts? Do you think that we're going to go back to traveling in 2022, and what's that going to look like?
I'll just share some anecdotes from Singapore. So recently, the government announced that vaccinated people can travel to certain other countries. And on that day, I think our national airline, Singapore Airlines, I think their website crashed on the same day that the announcement was made, because people were immediately booking their trips. So there's definitely, I think, some pent-up demand. People definitely want to travel. But I think I agree with, I think, what Levi said. I think business travel might not recover to the same extent. I think Zoom has been a game changer. So a lot of things can be done through online means now. I think one indicator to look at will be hospitals, because if hospitals become too crowded with sick COVID patients, I think that could be a headwind for reopening. So in Singapore, we are seeing our hospitals, become quite full again. So the government has tapped the brakes a little on the reopening plans. So I think if the Merck pill or some other pill comes around, which can treat people effectively, that might be a game changer. So we don't need to worry so much about vaccination. And even if you get COVID, you take a pill and you become okay, or it prevents death or serious illness. I think that might be a game changer.
Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about future growth trends for the next quarter. And if everyone can just be thinking about potentially one potential growth trends that they can see happening kind of in the short to medium term future, let's say the next quarter playing out. Start with you, Simone. Do you have any key growth trends that you can see coming up in the forthcoming quarter?
I'm waiting for my stocks to become trending again, and then profits from those, especially biotech stocks, which have been heavily affected by the interest rates fears and inflation fears. So already from March last year, people start selling all of them. And in terms of larger pharma instead, during pandemic, large pharma mostly focused on selling oncology drugs mostly. They makes billions of dollars from that. But because of the reduction in screening that we've seen during the pandemics, they also had a reduction in sales of oncology drugs. But as we are gonna pick up with the screenings, then numbers are gonna come back. So there could be growth on that side as well.
Okay.
On the top of what they can also make from COVID.
Okay. Right. Thank you. And Levi, do you have any points? I actually just want to ask you a question, actually. I saw that you did a post recently on, I think it was on nuclear. Am I right on that? Well, is that a growth trend that you can say? Obviously, that's a much longer term play, but because of the energy shortage, do you see something that could be something that's could have a lot of tailwinds in the next quarter and beyond?
Absolutely. Actually, that post that you're referring to was 4 posts.
Okay.
I went so deeply into the nuclear topic that I had to split it up into 4 to include every aspect and every important piece of information. I think it's similar that I noticed that after certain parts of the same topic, people lose interest, but that's all right. The thing is, yeah, so lots of growth trends that I can see in the next 6 months, and one of them is nuclear. Potentially, it's nuclear. I think it all boils down to how policymakers, after seeing this energy crunch that impacts Europe, Asia, and I presume going to impact the States as well in the short term, what policymakers going to decide as the best way forward after learning the lesson? What kind of result they see if they rush away from fossil fuels and try to rely on renewables too quickly, prematurely. There should be, most experts and scientists agree that there should be a bridge energy form that kind of sort of bridges the gap in this energy transition. And it's for me personally, I can't see any more viable alternative than nuclear. And there is a clear trend in the discussion going around. Most recently, in the European Union, 10 countries led by France went ahead and said we should include nuclear as a clean energy in the EU policy making, so to give it the same kind of tax credits and the same kind of support, financial support that is given to renewable energies like wind, solar, and hydro. So yeah, again, I don't want to be carried away. Lots to discuss around nuclear, but the thing is, just one quick thought: the available supply of uranium and what happened in the last 10 years since the Fukushima disaster, what it did to the uranium sector. I'm talking about miners and refiners mostly.
Yeah.
The supply side is extremely muted and suppressed, and any uptick in demand that we can see, that Poland just signed a contract with Fluor, who is the parent company of NuScale, who is a manufacturer of small reactors, small modular reactors. So all of these movements on the demand side, if this gains momentum, it could put the supply side in a huge trouble that could translate into much higher prices than what we see today. So yeah, one of the future growth trends could definitely be nuclear.
Yeah, I think I think that's very prominent in discussions at the moment as well because of the energy shortage. Obviously, nuclear's had a bad name because of the disasters that happened in Chernobyl, happened in Fukushima, etc.
Yeah, so it's quite funny. Just a quick thought on that. Absolutely, nuclear has a very, very bad name and lots of misunderstandings around it. And TV shows like Chernobyl from HBO doesn't help at all to help the general public, convince the general public what nuclear energy is and how it works and how actually energy generated. The thing is, it's extremely hard to change public opinion. It can take decades, as in other topics. So that can be seen as a potential risk in the way of nuclear to pick up and take off and become a trend, that it just takes a lot of time to get things moving.
It'd probably take a while for the economics of nuclear to make sense for those nuclear providers.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's what happened in the last 10 years to nuclear was really like, I don't want to swear, but yeah, being a uranium miner wasn't a good thing in the last 10 years.
Okay, we're an adult channel.
Okay, that's cool, fair enough. So yeah, those guys have really been on the wrong side of the figurative dick, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this obviously created a situation where we are today. So again, a couple of mines that are supposed to provide uranium to the existing demand, not for the projected demand, are about to be depleted in the next 4 to 5 years. So and lots of other similar things that happening within the industry clearly points towards an upward pressure on the prices.
Yeah.
But playing the nuclear field is extremely difficult because you got the miners, you got the utility companies that are dead ducks, so nobody invests in utility companies for obvious reasons. It's very hard to find the right angle and the right grip on nuclear and set yourself up for properly benefiting from the thesis.
Okay, so just quickly before we move on, anything in your portfolio that you're playing this nuclear trend, or suggestions for potential opportunities?
Yeah, if someone wants to go for the miners, I would go with Cameco. They are the operators of some of the world's largest uranium mines. We are kind of a little bit limited here because of eToro's portfolio of nuclear-related assets. But I have written to the team 3 times requesting to please add those ETFs that are tracking the uranium sector. But also, as a very interesting play would be Fluor, again, the US engineering company who owns NuScale that I mentioned, this small modular company, small modular reactor company.
But they're not pure plays, though, are they? They obviously. I think I think the only pure play on eToro is Cameco, if I understand correctly.
In terms of mining, yes, Cameco is the only pure play. It's not actually, because there is also a Chinese company called CGN or CNG. I think CGN. They are a nuclear reactor manufacturers. So actually, they build the reactors globally. So that's another interesting thing to look into. But I'm not sure how. In terms of the risk side, who wants to invest in a Chinese company related to nuclear? So
double the risk, right?
let's put it this way: people got sanctioned for much less.
I think that's.
But again, Fluor is not a pure play, but Fluor is an engineering company, and if those plans in the US go ahead with the infrastructure spending, then it's a double whammy. It's a double good for Fluor because they have the nuclear portfolio. They are a well-established engineering company with very close connections with the US government. So, and they're fairly undervalued at the moment. So I would definitely recommend to look into it. Not financial advice.
Thanks, 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝗏. That's good. It's good to get an overview of nuclear because a lot of people are interested in that at the moment and looking to it. Over to Ishfaaq. Ishfaaq, do you have any interesting kind of growth trends?
Actually, just like Simone, I don't try to think about the next quarter, the long term. But I think one thing we did not talk about today that will be something will happen in the next quarter is the battle happening in US Congress about the debt ceiling, because it's going to happen again in December and will be inflation. So even if we are talking about the Fed tapering, but eventually if the debt ceiling is not raised, they will have to print money again. So that's too many uncertainties surrounding this.
I think it's with the debt ceiling, I think everybody knows that it's kind of political tango, where obviously each political party are trying to get leverage over the other political party. I think 95% of it was already a debt before Biden came into the administration. But I think the political parties like to use it to say the current political party are acting irresponsibly and they're spending too much money. And I think that's why you get these kind of jousting between the two parties. I think they're going to raise it. I think they've extended it to December. I think they're going to raise it, but yeah, how do they raise it, and what effect does that have on inflation, and how much more money are they going to print, Ishfaaq? Amar, do you have any growth trends in the near future?
I think the growth trends that were present before the pandemic will probably be the same growth trends that will continue after the pandemic. Like in my portfolio, I have an e-commerce company. I have companies dealing with digital payments or with cloud computing or AI. I think these are mega trends. I think we are still in the early innings of these trends, so they should play out over a few years. Quarter to quarter, I mean, we can't really see them, but over the long term, I think we will see quite massive change. Electric cars is another trend, but I find it very hard to predict the winner in electric cars. I think the market has already presumed Tesla is going to be the winner, but I mean, I see a lot of other car companies coming up with good electric cars as well. So I find it a bit hard to predict. So I try to focus on those companies where I can predict the winner within the mega trend. So I have like Amazon in my portfolio. I think that's one winner in e-commerce and in cloud computing, and a few other mega trends. Yeah,
those are good growth trends. One of the other trends as well could be, like, obviously we're talking about all the disruptions that are happening and how life has changed with COVID. One of those other things is kind of the freelance economy. I think that could be very big, obviously, moving forward. I think we're already seeing a trend of people wanting to have freedom. People like Levy, who are traveling around the world from place to place, but want to earn an income. I think that freelance economy could be something that picks up as well. Yeah,
it's happening. I can confirm that.
It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? If people can have freedom and they can earn money at the same time, it's a no-brainer. Plus, it's great for people to have access to kind of these services. If somebody wants to design something or somebody wants to make a video, you can go to Fiverr or another similar type of website and create it. So it's kind of a win-win. But it could have some effect on some of the largest companies who are charging higher fees and who also have overheads. Yeah,
there are always winners and losers. This is what it is.
Yeah, if you're trailblazing, you have to knock over a few Skittles. Yeah. Maverick, any key trends that you can see or that you're particularly focusing on or have an interest in?
For the electrical vehicle, I'm like Tesla bull. Yeah,
you're a Tesla bro. Okay.
Yeah, I hold a majority position in Tesla.
Have you bought the shorts, the Tesla shorts?
No.
Then you're not a true Tesla boy.
Do you have it?
No, I don't have it. But I don't have Tesla in my portfolio.
I wanted to buy the tequila.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maverick, are you worried about increased competition in the electric car space? So I know that there's there's lots of other automobile companies that are really taking building new models and new technology, etc. Are you worried about competition such as Ford and other companies that are entering the electric space?
I'm not too worried because in the Tesla is really far ahead in their each of the department, like the energy, like the self-driving, like the many department they have gone far ahead. Yeah, so it's I don't see anybody overtake the Teslas in the short term.
Do you think that they're going to have a lot of competition? I'm not as bullish. I'm not bearish on Tesla, but I'm not as bullish on Tesla as some other people are. I think they're going to have a lot of competition. I'm probably more bullish on Ford. I think they've put out a lot of good models. And I also saw a stat at the moment in terms of automobiles, where the majority of states in the US, I think it was 47 or 46, correct me if I'm wrong, as one of the viewers, that the majority of states, 47 out of 50 of those states, the highest frequency of sales of cars is Ford. I know a lot of those are oil and petrol cars, but that's a lot of brand loyalty that's been built over a number of years. So if Ford do really good electric cars, it might be quite difficult to stop them. But I agree that Tesla has had an early moving advantage in terms of electric cars. But some of the legacy automobile companies also have a lot of production efficiencies as well, which might make profitability a lot easier. Yeah, so yeah, that's going to be a big battle, but that's not going to be won or lost over a quarter. That's going to be a multi-decade battle, I can see. Yeah. Okay. Oh, interesting. So a lot of good growth trends there from the panel. Before we wrap up the discussion today, I wanted to talk. I don't think we could do a video without talking about what's happening in crypto right now. Bitcoin, the day that we're making this video on the Saturday, Bitcoin is obviously went over the $60,000 mark. I think it's about $62,000 at the time of this video. And there's
61.
Been
61.
61. Yeah, I think it did touch 62 earlier, but yeah, it's probably around back to 61. And that is the volatility of Bitcoin. But there's a lot to unpack with what's going on in crypto and in Bitcoin at the moment. And there's a lot of stuff and there's a lot of positive sentiment at the moment to do with the Bitcoin ETF and the approvals. There is, I think there's 5 or 6 Bitcoin ETFs applications that are due in for a decision over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And there was a lot of talk, although it hasn't been officially confirmed, there was a lot of talks yesterday. And I think there's obviously what's driven the price is that a couple of these applications are set to be approved and actually start operation as early as next week. But these are futures. There's 2 different types, just for the viewers, there's 2 different types of Bitcoin ETF. There's a futures-based Bitcoin ETF, which is what these applications that we think are going to be approved in the next couple of days are. And there's also the physically backed Bitcoin ETFs. And the physically backed Bitcoin ETF means that they have to hold the equivalent amount of Bitcoin in their reserves when people buy. So although I think it's really positive that the Bitcoin futures ETFs are approved, I also think that it's not quite the same as if a physically backed Bitcoin ETF was approved, because I think what you see in Bitcoin ETFs, or in ETFs in general, is that, especially Bitcoin ETFs, is that they tend to trade at a premium when it's bullish sentiment in the market. So when there's a bull market, they tend to go above what the spot price is of Bitcoin. And when there's negative, like what happened in May in China, in terms of when the price went down in Bitcoin, you then see it trading at a lower rate than the actual spot price. So I think there's going to be a lot of manipulation in what's happening in Bitcoin, but there's a lot of exciting catalysts, and yeah, we'll see how high it can go. I have my views on that, but yeah, let's see what happens. Simone, do you have any key kind of takeaways or anything you want to talk about in terms of what's happening in Bitcoin or crypto in general?
Maybe because we are running out of time.
Yeah,
we can just make everybody a prediction. Is it Bitcoin gonna reach 100K by the end of the year? Just yes or no, everybody.
Yes.
I'll be surprised if it's not 100,000 before in this year. Yeah.
Okay.
Amar, any views
I don't
there?
have a prediction. I mean, I think it's a fool's errand to make a prediction. But I just have a question regarding the environmental case for Bitcoin. I know that Bitcoin mining can be done using renewable energy. But what about the physical waste of the GPU miners? I mean, there's going to be a lot of waste in terms of these GPU sets that are used for mining, because as the hash rate of Bitcoin increases, the difficulty and the computer puzzles that are done to mine new Bitcoin becomes harder, and you have to have increasingly more powerful GPU sets. And the old ones will go to waste. I guess they will be thrown in landfills and stuff like that. I think that's a key reason, besides the energy question, why a lot of the other crypto experts like Vitalik and Charles Hoskinson for Cardano have gone to a proof of stake version for crypto. So I have some doubts about whether the proof of work model is sustainable in the long term. So just like to hear anybody's views on that.
So Bitcoin is not gonna reach 100K by the end of the year.
I don't know.
Just say yes or no. Any prediction?
Probably not, in my opinion.
Okay.
Boo. Levy, do you have any thoughts, or not an area of interest?
From me, it's a plain no. That's it's an opinion that it's not going to reach the 100K. But again, I'm not. Crypto is not my strongest suit. I have my views. Pretty much in you know, on the same page with Amar around the sustainability concerns. But yeah, it's just a no from me in this punt.
Ishfaaq, yes or no, my friend?
I don't know much about it. I don't know much about the pricing of Bitcoin. I don't want to predict. I don't want to speculate about the next 3 months. But if you're asking me about the long term, I don't think that Bitcoin is going to be around for long.
Wow. It's a divisive subject, crypto and Bitcoin. You have people that really believe and people that don't. Obviously, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. I think everybody knows that. But I just wanted to touch upon what Amar said in terms of the environmental friendliness of Bitcoin mining. I think it could be said previously before that obviously a lot of the Bitcoin mining was done in China, right? And China had a very high reliance on coal as energy, which is a dirty energy source. But in May, obviously the Chinese government completely banned the mining of Bitcoin, right? And that dropped the hash rate considerably. And what actually happened is those miners actually migrated out of China and started to set up in the US and Kazakhstan and other countries. And we've actually seen that hash rate actually come back online in other countries, which I actually think is a net positive for the environmental views that people have, because a lot of people now are using much more renewable fuel in terms of Bitcoin mining. We've even seen some Bitcoin mining using volcano energy from El Salvador. So I think there's going to be much more renewable energy sources. I think it's going to become a lot cleaner. So I think that kind of weighed on sentiment over the previous couple of months. But now a lot of that has been sorted out. It's definitely a work in progress, but I think that a key driver for the price of Bitcoin is probably going to be the institutional interest for Bitcoin. And I think also with what's driving the economy in terms of this money printing, inflation, I think it kind of really drives into the fact that you know, Bitcoin could have a really good move from here above all-time highs. But yeah, it's based on everybody's opinion. Yeah. Maverick, any views on crypto? And you know, is there any pure crypto plays that you're seeing at the moment?
Mainly, I hold Bitcoin, but I hold some altcoin as well, like Ethereum and Solana. Yeah, Solana is the one that, yeah, there's a high potential.
I see the whole crypto industry kind of split into different areas. So I think Bitcoin is obviously trying to be this store of value asset, you know, held by institutions, but also held by people in order to try and preserve their wealth and protect themselves from inflation. But obviously the cryptos such as Ethereum, Solana, these are kind of protocols which are, you know, they're trying to really be like, you know, like the computer age of the Android operating system or Apple operating system, etc., and drive a lot of decentralized applications of that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. But I also think there's going to be a lot of competition with the different protocols. But I'm also very bullish on Solana, and something that I've held for quite a long time. My portfolio outside of eToro, only just listed on eToro. Yeah. Okay, I'm probably going to wrap it up there, guys, because I think we've run out of time. But it's really interesting discussion today, and I think that there's a lot for the viewers to take in from our discussion. I want to thank all the panel for joining us today and for providing your insights. So thanks very much, everybody, for participating in this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome.
Thanks.